The greatest threat to humanity is not the atomic bomb, but the psyche of man. Carl Gustav Jung. We live in the information age, yet we are perishing from a lack of meaning. We possess technology, science, and freedom as never before, but we are spiritually depleted. Progress has estranged us from the soul. This is the narrative of the soul forgotten in the modern world. A profound journey towards what we truly are, and what we have long ceased to listen to. The invisible pain of modern man. Modern man is surrounded by stimuli, yet dwells in an inner wasteland. There is a quiet unrest, a nebulous feeling of emptiness that grows even among those who seem to have everything. Amid the world's noise, one question emerges: why do so many feel something is missing that they cannot name? Carl Jung identified this pain as a spiritual phenomenon. He did not speak of institutional religion, but of the soul, the deepest dimension of the human being. According to him, many people suffer from a lack of meaning as they remain in a spiritual stagnation. Carl Gustav Jung. This suffering is invisible to the eyes, but as real as an open wound. Western civilization, by prioritizing reason and repressing the symbolic, has produced a generation disconnected from its inner core. Thus, the number of people who lose themselves in distractions, addictions, or psychiatric diagnoses that do not address the real issue increases. But what if the soul could still speak to us? The call of the night. Dreams as gateways to the soul. While the external world demands productivity, speed, and control, the inner world yearns for attention. At night, when the eyes close and the rational mind quiets, something profound emerges: dreams. For Carl Jung, dreams are more than just disjointed images. They are symbolic messages from the deepest recesses of the psyche. Nearly half of our lives are spent in the nocturnal realm of the psyche. Carl Gustav Jung. As long as they remain unknown, dreams disrupt our waking life. Carl Gustav Jung. To ignore dreams is to ignore oneself. Jung saw them as a bridge between the unconscious and consciousness, a means to reveal traumas, desires, wounds, but also potentials and paths to healing. Keeping a dream journal and analyzing them in depth can lead to individuation, the process of becoming who one is. Dreams are not random. They call to us. And what happens when we decide to listen? The 4 stages of inner healing. Listening to dreams and diving into the unconscious begins a path of transformation. Jung mapped this process into 4 essential stages of analytical psychology: confession, explanation, education, and transformation. Confession is the first step. It involves naming the shadows, bringing to light what has been repressed. The concept of sin paved the way for the emergence of repressions. Therefore, a catharsis is necessary. Carl Gustav Jung. Next comes the explanation, where unconscious contents are understood and integrated. Education represents the individual's adaptation to social reality without betraying their essence. Finally, transformation occurs, a profound and spiritual change that reconnects the individual to their true self. This path is not simple. It requires courage to face what is hidden. But without this passage, the soul remains fragmented, and it is on this inner journey that forces greater than the ego emerge: the archetypes. Archetypes and the collective unconscious. In exploring the unconscious, Jung discovered that there is more than personal memories. There exists a deeper level, shared across all humanity, the collective unconscious. Within it dwell the archetypes, primordial images that have shaped thoughts, emotions, and behaviors since ancient times. If don't, I'd bent. Man believes he creates ideas, but in reality, they create him. Carl Gustav Jung. Archetypes such as the hero, the shadow, the mother, the wise old man, among others, appear in myths, dreams, arts, and even our most intimate decisions. They are like invisible forces that structure the human soul. To ignore them is to live without a map. To recognize them is to begin the path of individuation. But this path inevitably passes through the natural changes of life. And the moment when the soul most intensely clamors, midlife. The phases of life and the midlife crisis. For Jung, life is not a straight line, but a spiral of transformations. He divided human existence into three major phases: puberty, youth, and midlife. Interestingly, he omitted childhood and extreme old age, one dominated by the unconscious, the other representing a return to dependence. Around the age of 35, a decisive change occurs. Old desires lose their meaning, and existential questions emerge with force. The psyche prepares for renewal. To transform a human being into a man of the future, one must allow the old forms of life to disappear. Carl Gustav Jung. This is called the midlife crisis. Not a downfall, but an invitation. A chance to become who one truly is, but for that, one must dig even deeper layers. Where an ancient being dwells, the archaic man within us. The archaic man within us. Beneath the civilized mask we wear, an ancient figure resides, the archaic man. He did not vanish with the rise of science. He was merely repressed, pushed into the depths of the unconscious. Jung believed that, on some level, we all still carry within us the mindset of our primitive ancestors. Every civilized human being remains an archaic man at the deepest layers of the psyche. Carl Gustav Jung. The modern mind fears the invisible, the irrational, the symbolic. Yet the archaic man accepted that unseen forces governed his life. He found meaning in nature, in rituals, in symbols. Today, we repeat traditions like Easter, but without grasping their true meaning. We celebrate without knowing what we're celebrating. We've lost our connection to the sacred, and without that, we become hollow machines. But there is a path back, and sometimes that path reveals itself through art. Art, creativity, and the voice of the spirit. For Jung, art was not merely aesthetic, it was a living expression of the soul. The artist acts as a conduit through which the collective unconscious speaks. True creation arises from a place far deeper than the ego can reach. Art is a genuine, primordial experience. Carl Gustav Jung. The true creative impulse does not emerge from logic, but from the spirit. It is as if a higher force is asking to be revealed. When the artist listens to that voice, transformation happens, within and beyond. Creativity, much like dreaming, is the language of the soul, and to ignore that voice is to stifle what is most human within us. But there is a danger when that voice is suppressed. The unconscious begins to revolt, and then the threat becomes real. The true danger to humanity. Modern history is marked not by tragedies caused by monsters, but by men. Jung lived through both world wars and saw in them the reflection of a sickened collective soul. Civilization collapsed, not due to a lack of reason, but from the absence of inner awareness. Much of the world's evil stems from man's desperate unconsciousness. Carl Gustav Jung. When we deny our darker impulses, they don't vanish, they return even stronger. The psyche seeks balance, which is why Jung emphasized a fundamental principle: enantiodromia, the return to the opposite. Enantiodromia, the hidden opposite becomes what is revealed. Carl Gustav Jung. This reversal is a call to integrate light and shadow, logic and intuition. It is the only way to prevent evil from being projected onto the outer world. But for that, perhaps the time has come to heal the soul, where faith and psychology may finally walk side by side. Psychology and religion, the spiritual healing of the century. For centuries, religion and science followed separate paths, but Jung proposed something revolutionary. The healing of the soul requires both. Psychology cannot dismiss the spiritual dimension, just as religion must acknowledge the psychic dynamics of human suffering. Man can only be delivered from his suffering by revelations of a force greater than his own. Carl Gustav Jung. According to Jung, religions are healing systems for psychic ailments. When rightly understood, they do not imprison, they liberate. Faith, hope, and love cease to be mere abstractions and become remedies for the wounded soul. Faith, hope, love, and insight are the highest achievements of human effort. Carl Gustav Jung. Reconnecting with the sacred is not a retreat into the past, but a step toward inner wholeness, and thus, the soul, forgotten by so many, can finally be rediscovered. The soul rediscovered. Modern man has triumphed in external battles, but still wages his greatest war within. The meaning of life lies neither in the extremes of reason nor in the fanaticism of faith, but in restoring the soul to the center of existence. Jung showed us that true evolution is spiritual. To rediscover the soul is to recover purpose, peace, and meaning. We must reconcile ourselves with the mysterious truth that the spirit is the living body seen from within, and the body the external expression of the living spirit. Carl Gustav Jung. The future of humanity lies not in more control, but in greater awareness. If something within you was stirred by this message, do not ignore the call. It may be your soul asking to be heard. Join our community of transformation. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this truth, and subscribe to the channel to continue this inner journey with us. Because the greatest power you can awaken is the power to fully become yourself.